ladies and gentlemen, I'm John Monsul. This is called Communicating Today. We've been on Channel 10 for a very long time, over 25 years. In fact, we're going to be doing show number 786 tonight, believe it or not, with my wonderful guest sitting alongside of me here that I will introduce to you in a moment. But first of all, I just want to let you know that we come on 3 times every week. We come on every Wednesday evening in prime time at 8:30 p.m. Every Friday morning for you early birds when you're driving to work and you're texting and you're emailing, and you shouldn't be doing that because that's very dangerous. You should be concentrating on your driving. But also for the 3rd time, we come on every Sunday afternoon at 3:30. 3 times every week, one of the longest running programs right here on Channel 10. But before we start our program, I just want to take a brief moment and dedicate this show, number 786, to my beloved sweetheart, Dolores Dee Monsul, who passed away a couple of years ago. I miss you, honey. I love you. I can't wait to see you someday. But we got a show to do tonight, so we have to get on with the show. And let me take this opportunity to introduce my guest for tonight's program, this nice lady sitting over here alongside of me. Her name is Dr. Abida Ripley, and she allowed me to call her Abby. Thank you, Abby. You can call me John, and you'll be Abby. And she's an educator, and she's an author. And she's written a whole bunch of wonderful children's books, some of which we have pictured on our desk here in front of us. And we're going to be talking about these wonderful books that she's written. She has a wonderful education, too, by the way. She has I've only got 1 degree. I only have a bachelor's degree, but she's got 2 master's degrees and a PhD. And what are your degrees in, Abby?
Most of them are in education.
Education, yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. And so you're up to me by 3 to 1. I've only got 1 degree. But anyway, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, she was a former member of our TV crew. A few years ago, she helped to produce my program. And then she took a hiatus. She hasn't been on for a while, so now she's back again, not as a member of the crew, but as a guest on our program on tonight's show. And again, thank you so much, Abby, for being on the program.
Thank you, John.
Now, how did you ever get interested in developing your interest in writing? Where did all that begin with? I think you told me something about it in your family.
Yeah, I started writing when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
That's when I first wrote my poem. And I belong to a family of writers. My father was a very famous writer and journalist, and my mother was a short story writer. My brother, my sister, everybody is a writer, so it would be very surprising if I weren't a writer.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you had a lot of inspiration right within your own family.
Right.
And but then, in addition to just becoming interested in writing per se, you became more interested later on in writing specifically for one category, namely children.
Right.
And so you kind of switched from just general all kinds of writing to writing specifically for children with books that you've created here, these wonderful books. And before the show, you told me that you've written 9 books just in the last year.
Right, since last
That's amazing.
August. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have had these ideas in my head for a long time, but I never had time to actually do it.
Yeah.
But when I took retirement in 2012, that's when I started writing.
Yeah.
I wrote some screenplays, some stage plays, and since last year I have been writing children's books.
You've written 9 books in a year. You know how many books I've written, Abby? None. So you're 9 books ahead of me, that's for sure. Now, these books that you write for children, of which we have some picture right here, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to read a little bit of excerpts later on in the show of the material that's inside of these books. And I think you're going to find it very interesting. And the age group that you cater to for your books, Abby, are the ages between what? 3 and 12? 3 and 12.
Yes.
Okay. So the material that we'll be reading from your books later on in the show will be aimed at that age level.
Exactly.
I guess, at that
Yes,
point,
John.
right? When did your special interest begin in writing for children, per se? Is that a more recent development?
Actually, it started in the 80s when I first started to administer children's programs, but I never had enough time to do anything with those ideas. Since my retirement, I can now just
You have the time to be able to sit down and write.
Exactly, yes.
And that's exactly what I did. I worked for 50 years, and then I retired from my regular work, and that's how I was able to do this TV show. It was a post-retirement program.
Right.
Now, did you receive any special training? I know you have 2 master's degrees and a PhD and so forth in education, and you became very much interested in writing from your family experience, your mom and dad and your brothers and sisters and so forth. But did you receive any kind of other special training?
I have not received any formal training in writing books or writing anything, no.
Yeah.
It was just the inadvertent training that I got in the family.
Yeah. Or maybe it just kind of came naturally. You just took to writing because it was something that you love to do.
Right.
You enjoy writing, and it was a natural thing for you to move right into writing.
Exactly.
But then to designate your writing specifically for young children, that was something else that came into your life a little later on. And you produced this massive array of books, 9 books in 1 year.
I have 24 more coming.
Wow. So what are some of your future plans? You're just going to keep doing the same thing, I guess.
Yes, I'm going to be doing
Gonna keep
exactly
writing,
the
huh?
same thing, yes. I'm not looking back.
And you found a publisher.
Right.
They will publish your books.
Right.
And now people can buy these books. These books are for sale.
Right.
And where can people buy these books?
I would recommend going on Amazon,
Amazon?
and that's it. Putting my name in, all the books will come up.
Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, watching our program, we're going to she's in the process of developing her website, which is not fully developed yet, but it will be soon. But in the meantime, if you want to find out more of these wonderful children's books that we're going to be showing you tonight on our show, she has a wonderful email that we're putting up at the bottom of your TV screen periodically during the course of our 28-minute show. In case you don't, in fact, it's up there right now, but in case you didn't see it, I'll mention it. It is, her email is bookworm7000@outlook.com. That's what's up on your screen right now, and then you can see her name there also. But that's how you get more information on these wonderful children's books, which we're going to be showing you in a few minutes. And Dr. Ripley said that, John, I think I'm going to have you read from one of my books. I said, really? I said, you want me to perform on this show? She said, you're going to have to perform with one of my books, John. I'm counting on you to come through. Thank you very much.
That's right.
So now, were you motivated, besides your family and your mom and your dad and your brothers and sisters and other people, were there any other people in your life that helped to motivate you to go into this field of writing, and writing specifically for children, for young children?
Yes, children in my family and children that I worked with also motivated me.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're getting close to the middle of our show. So what we usually do at that point, I usually get a signal. I haven't got the signal yet, Abby, but I think we're getting close. And what I want to do is go back to the camera for a few seconds to look at you folks out there watching our program, to reintroduce the show for you folks out there who may have tuned in a little bit late. And we hope there aren't legions of you who did that. I'm John Monsul, and the name of this show is called Communicating Today. We've been on Channel 10 for a very long time, well over 25 years, and we are going to be, believe it or not, going to be doing show number 786 tonight with my wonderful guest, this nice lady here sitting alongside of me, Dr. Abida Ripley, and she allowed me to call her Abby. And I said, you call me John, and we'll be on a very friendly first name basis. But she has a lot of wonderful information by email, so the whole key to this show, ladies and gentlemen, we can't tell you everything about these wonderful books, because she's written a lot of them, but you can get a lot of the information from her email, and you're going to get a lot more information from what we're going to show you right now in the second half of our show, because we're going to be reading some excerpts from a couple of her books, and this is where she gets some of her ideas. And when it comes to ideas, Abby, I know that we have some stuff back on the computer, and if we give the signal to the folks back on the computer, maybe they can put up some displays up on our screen and show some of the ideas that you've come up with, some of the illustrations that you have in your beautiful books. So I think back there in the control room, I think we're ready to show some of the illustrations that Doctor has brought in. And there, you want to relate this and So,
Yeah, you were asking me where I get my ideas from, so I wanted to tell you that some ideas just come to your head as you are doing your daily work or even sleeping or watching television. But there are other ways to approach this. And this next technique, I use a lot of this, is that you get triggered by a personality. So your idea is personality driven as opposed to idea driven story. So for example, here's a child, Musa. He's my great nephew. He's very close to my heart. And I wanted to write some light-hearted, fun rhyming story for him. But I got some problems, like Musa is his name, which is the Arabic version of Moses. So, I mean, that's not a very familiar name in this culture. Plus, I could not find, to save my life, one word that would rhyme with Musa. So I went to Moses, and a whole host of rhyming words came to my mind. So there's Moses, poses, hoses, roses, cozies. It was out of control. So I took all those rhyming words and I spun a story around it in about 15 minutes. Can we show the next image, please? And the story that I wrote in 15 minutes, next image, please. This is the most popular story of all of my 9 books.
look at that clever illustration. Isn't that beautiful?
Right.
That's designed for kids from 3 to 12. I'm sure they love those illustrations.
I'm sure too.
Let's have a few more.
And then another trigger was my son. If we look at the next book, that is called Birds Hate Me. Okay. This child is heartbroken because the birds will not let him touch them or come near them, because of course birds are birds, they are afraid of people. So this was triggered by my son Omar, but this is not to say that this character only has Omar in it. He has Omar in it, and he also has a lot of me in it, because I was the one who used to be devastated by this thought that birds hated me and did not let me touch them. So I made that story going, and his parents in the story suggest to him that he has to be patient for a long, long time and be perseverant. And soon enough, next image please, soon enough they're knocking on his window to wake him up to feed them. And slowly, slowly, after a few more years, next image please, after a few more years, they are all over him. They are eating out of his hand, and they are hovering around him. They are not afraid of him at all. So this is the story about my son.
And these illustrations, Abby, you have these done by people who live in, did you say India or China?
Yeah, India and China.
They
This one was
wonderful artists
Right,
over there.
beautiful,
And they
yes.
do these beautiful works for you,
Yeah.
and they send them back to you, and then they go into your books,
Right.
and then they get paid for the illustrations
done. Yes, of course.
that we're showing right now on our
Right,
program.
right. So the
wonderful.
next image is of Lena's helpers. Lena is my great niece who also captured my heart. I know that she loves cats, so I wrote a story around that where a fairy brings some animals to her to help her out. And they are cleaning, next image please. They are cleaning and ironing her clothes. Can we go to the next image please? They're doing a lot of work for her, but at the end of the day, next image, she figures out that they are more trouble than they are worth. So she gets rid of all of them, and now the lesson in the story is best help is self-help.
Okay, is that about the end of the illustrations? I guess that's it. Okay.
Right, we can stop.
Back on camera again. Thanks a lot back there, Brad. Appreciate it. And let's go back to the show. And thanks very much, Abby, for bringing those illustrations along with you.
Thank you.
Now, what is the basic purpose of young children who read your beautiful illustrated books for kids between the ages of 3 and 12? What are we trying to get these kids to do? To show, and I think before the program you were saying something about what?
Every book has a message.
To motivate them to do something.
Yeah, to motivate them to do something or to understand something about life that they don't already know. For example, patience and perseverance can get you far, or you don't play rough like this book. You don't play rough and you don't play unsupervised when you're that little. So every book of mine has some lesson for the children.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. So these are wonderful books for the kids. And then, of course, you asked me, and you prevailed upon me. You said, John, would you take one of my favorite books and would you read a couple of pages from the book? So she gave me this book, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the cover that we're going to look at. I'm going to read from this book. He said, you're a good reader, John, so I'd like to have you read from my book entitled The Lost Bean. So here we go, from The Lost Bean. Once upon a time, there was a sparrow. She found a lima bean. She flew and sat on a tree branch, but as she opened her beak to enjoy her breakfast, the lima bean fell into the hollow tree, and it was gone. She said to the tree, "Oh, tree, please give me back my lima bean." And the tree said, "No way." That made the sparrow very sad. So the dismayed sparrow flew to the carpenter and said to the carpenter, "Please chop down that tree because he won't give me back my lima bean." Now there's the little sparrow, picture here. Anyway, all right, let me flip over to the next page. The carpenter said, "The tree did nothing bad to me. Why should I chop it down?" So the pensive little sparrow thought for a while and took her petition to the king. She said to the king, "Oh, king, please lock up the carpenter because he won't chop down the tree and the tree won't give me back my lima bean. Woe is me." The king said, "The carpenter did nothing bad to me, so why should I lock him up?" And here's a picture of the king over here on this panel. If you can see that, there we go. All right, so then why should I lock him up? So the disappointed sparrow went to the snake and said to the snake, "Oh, snake, please bite the queen, because the queen won't snub the king, and the king won't lock up the carpenter, and the carpenter won't chop down the tree, and the tree won't give me back my lima bean, so woe is me, woe is me." And the snake said, "The queen did nothing bad to me. Why should I bite her?" And that's it goes on. This goes on from page after page, these wonderful illustrations, these wonderful cartoons, until it goes all the way back to the back part of this little childhood story for ages between 3 and 12. That's what this is designed for. And it goes down to the very end of this cute little book. Again, it's called The Lost Bean. There's the cover. By that time, the lima bean had grown into thousands of beans. The sparrow called on her fellow sparrows, and they each brought a grain of rice. Now the sparrow cooked a big feast of beans and rice and invited everybody to eat. Can you guess who the chief guest was? Yes, the cat, because the cat had broken the cycle. And that's the end of the beautiful story in this beautiful little book. It's one of her favorite books, Avi's favorite book, entitled The Lost Bean. And I think your husband likes this book also, too,
He loves
right?
it.
Scott. Her husband's name is Scott. He's in our studio. By the way, Scott, welcome to our studio audience. Hope you're enjoying our wonderful show with your lovely wife, Dr. Abida Ripley. Thank you again, Abida, for so much for being on the program. Now, people who like to do and write out there, and I guess in our TV audience, you were bitten by people in your family, your mom and your dad, your brothers and your sisters, your relatives, your in-laws, your cousins, your nephews, your nieces. Everybody in your great big family inspired you and motivated you to get into writing. And it was just a natural thing for you to do because you love to write.
Right.
And eventually you started to write for children's books, and these wonderful books came out. But now there are a lot of people maybe in our studio audience and also our TV audience, you folks watching out there in our TV audience, and you may be thinking about, well, maybe I'd like to write some books like this, or maybe I'd like to write some children's books, and maybe be a competitor of Dr. Ripley's here. She's not looking for too many competitors, I don't think, but maybe you folks would like to become interested in writing, and I would like to ask her, Abby, you can say, and give these nice viewers out there watching Communicating Today, a little bit of advice on how to get involved and get interested and become a writer like you are.
I have 3 advices for them.
Free advice, 3 advices.
Read, read, and read.
Read, read, and read.
Right. Whatever genre you pick, storybooks or suspense, anything, just keep reading and reading and reading. You can never read too much because that gives you a knowledge base, that gives you a nice foundation for language, for idiom.
Yeah.
And you want to read books and then forget them
Yeah.
because you don't want to copy anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So keep reading, and then keep forgetting and keep reading some more until you feel comfortable that you can now write.
And is there any like a quota of how many books they, like some people say you should read a book a week or you should read a book a month?
If you want to be a writer, you should read at least 5 books a week.
5 books a week? Wow.
I'm not talking about 500-page novels. I mean,
Small
I'm talking
books.
about small books.
Yeah. And these could be all different kinds of books. I mean, they could be drama, they could be humor,
Right.
they could be entertainment, they could be anything, music.
Any genre that you want to write in, you want to read a lot of that genre.
If you have a particular field
Right.
that you want to specialize in as a writer,
Right.
and concentrate on those kinds of books. If you want to do mysteries and detective stories, then read Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
And a lot of Sherlock Holmes books, and you can write wonderful mystery novels and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And that's a terrific idea. And should you join a book club? I
Sure,
think.
you should join a book club.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you belong to any kind of a book club at this time?
Not right now,
Not
but
right
I
now?
used to before.
Yeah. And I think the different genres, like for example, for detective stories, they have specific book clubs.
They do.
You can join if you want to pursue that field of writing.
Also, there are many groups and clubs about children's picture story books or about young adults novels,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and also another thing that should be a very good friend of yours, if you want to be an aspiring new writer, aspiring place that you should become very friendly with and very comfortable with is your public library.
Exactly.
They have a lot of wonderful things that they offer in the library, a lot of free stuff, and a lot of books that you can borrow. You can take a book out. You can become a member of the library, get a membership card, just like I'm a member of the Fairfax County Library Association. And I don't frequent the library as much as I should because I'm not a writer like you are. But for somebody like yourself, that's a good place to become friendly with and to become very familiar with. And they can be very helpful, give you a lot of tips and a lot of ideas, and steer you in the right direction, and help you to become a more successful writer.
Fairfax County encourages local writers a lot.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so that would be a good advice that you would give to people who want to become a writer. And it looks to me like you're very happy at what you're doing. It looks to me like you're very satisfied.
I am.
I see you smiling.
I wanted to read just one line from the book, Birds Hate Me, for you. Is when the child is whining and complaining about birds not letting him touch him. And the parents are saying, look, they are afraid, it's nothing personal, they are afraid of humans because humans hunt them and they cage them. So the kid says, I'm not a human, I'm a little boy. There's a statement for you.
Yeah, wow. That's amazing. That's very interesting. And folks, too, by the way, we have pictured in the back of our set here, you probably can't see them up close, and my face is probably in the way of some of the books, but we have about 8 or 10 of some of her books. And as I said before earlier in the show, just in the past year, you've written 9 books, and how many are you going to write next year in 2020?
I have 6 ready to go. Some of them I'm waiting for illustrations for, but I have about 24 ideas.
Wow, that's amazing. Does your husband Scott, is he a much help in helping to write these books, or he just kind of stays out of your way and lets you do your thing?
He's my biggest critic.
Oh,
Yes.
And you need a critic.
I do. He tears it apart.
Absolutely.
But he does it to help me. And I think if I can survive, if my story can survive his scrutiny, then I'm good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another wonderful thing, that learning how to become a writer, you should find somebody in your family or a dear friend that can become your best critic.
Exactly.
Tell you what you're doing right and tell you what you're doing wrong.
Exactly.
Another good piece of advice, right? And I just got the 2-minute warning, believe it or not, which means we're getting down toward the end of our show, Abby. I can't thank you enough for being on our program. Wonderful guest and bringing along these wonderful books.
Thank you.
And this one that I read from, I hope I did a half-decent reading out there, folks, watching our show and communicating today. Did I do pretty good, Abby?
You did excellent.
Yeah, and it's a pretty long book. I couldn't read through the whole thing, but I read through about half of it. But anyway, thank you again for coming on our show. Come back and see us again sometime. And the best of luck. And folks out there, there's an email that you can check out with her and communicate with Abby, with Dr. Ripley. And again, that email address, bookworm7000, that's a very appropriate email address, bookworm7000@outlook.com. She'd be more than happy to communicate with you, help you to become a writer, help you to find out how you can get these wonderful books that she's written. She's a prolific child book writer, that's for sure, and has the most beautiful illustrations inside it. Thank you so much, Abby. Got to close out now, so come back and see us, folks, next week. And we always go out by saying, keep on communicating for success. Wonderful guests like our guest for tonight's show. Bye-bye.